Sure. Oh, sure, I just moved close to you and you're gonna move
Yeah.
away.
Well, it also depends on my mother.
You and Richard matching jackets, only this is reversed on the collar.
Oh. Oh.
Richard Durant.
Oh, no kidding, huh? That's funny.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. First item is if Nathan would take the roll, please.
Councilmember McPherson.
Here.
Councilmember Biggs. Here. Councilmember Laraway.
Yes.
Council President Bruce.
Yes.
Mayor Steer.
Here. And if you'll join me for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull number 6.
Resolution R13, 2024.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there is a problem with that one. The link isn't working, so council hasn't had a chance to look that one over, so.
You guys have
Do you
any?
anything else?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as published without resolution R13-2024.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, and we place resolution R13, 2024 as item 8A. Any further discussion? Nathan, would you poll the council?
Councilmember McPherson.
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs.
Aye.
Councilmember Laraway.
Yes.
Council President Bruce.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Public comment, is there anybody who wishes to address the council? All right. Seeing none, takes us to item 6A, Ada County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to go ahead and let Chief Fertusco take this one.
Mayor, council members, Mike Fertusco, Chief of Police for the City of Cuna, 793 West 4th Street. Today's a very good night for the City of Cuna, the Cuna Police Department, and the Ada County Sheriff's Office. I have Chief Deputy Justin Dussault with us and Captain Ryan Jensen. Captain Jensen's here to present a Bureau Director's Award for Deputy Steve Yarnott for his life-saving on a young man here in the City of Cuna a little while back. The entire, well, I don't know if the entire Grace family is here, but there's a lot of members in the family right now. I would ask after the award if we could do a couple pictures, maybe up front here, Mayor, if that would be good. I'll introduce, this is Captain Ryan Jensen. He's going to present this.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. I appreciate you allowing me to take a few minutes of your valuable time to recognize this phenomenal deputy. The Ada County Sheriff's Office has absolutely loved the partnership we've had with the City of Cuna for many years. I was able to, in fact, experience that wonderful partnership when I worked in Cuna from 2007 to the earlier part of 2011. And because this relationship is so good, we have a ton of employees that want to work in the City of Cuna, and it attracts some of our best employees, Deputy Yarnott being one of them. So I'm here tonight to recognize him for his actions. This is a Bureau Director's Award. It's worded as though I am speaking to him to just give some context, and I will go ahead and read that now. One of the Police Services Bureau operating principles is to respond to community in crisis. Your quick thinking and decisive action on November 29th, 2023, which allowed you to save the life of a 23-year-old man, was the ultimate public example of that priority in action. You were working a regular patrol shift that night when you were dispatched to a local grocery store for a report that an employee mixing cleaning chemicals had collapsed and was unresponsive. You arrived, saw the man lying on the ground, and immediately took over CPR for a store employee, even though the man was lying in some kind of unrecognizable liquid. You provided CPR and first aid until paramedics arrived. You then helped paramedics move the man into a different area of the store where they took over treatment before stabilizing and taking him to a local hospital. Your selfless actions and instinct to protect provided essential medical care to a fellow citizen in a time of crisis and helped save his life. You displayed the qualities, selfless service, and a dedication to make our community a safer place to live, work, and play of the Ada County Sheriff's Office at our best. Thank you. That's all I have to say. I'm not gonna, I know you're probably not gonna want to say anything, so I won't make you. If we could just snap a few pictures like the chief asked for and.
Yes, Captain Jensen, thank you. And we're very proud of Deputy, all of our deputies. I mean, we have some great folks that work out here, and this is just another example of how well that works for us. And saving a life, there's nothing any better, so that will go with you for the rest of your life. So we appreciate that very much. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a short recess so you can do whatever photos you'd like to do. And
Thank you.
I would ask if the Grace family is okay standing up to show your support, and I don't know if Trenton's here or not, or if he feels comfortable standing up. We're glad you recovered, Trenton.
Make a motion for that, to take a recess? No.
Thank you, Mayor.
come on up and whatever you'd like to do here.
We are supposed to do this.
I know. Oh, I will, don't worry. No kid.
This is from the city.
And I need to commend you too. Good job. Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
All right. They're putting it over at
Oh, okay.
I never heard about it.
I would just need a couple more minutes while the clerk is printing off a copy of that resolution. We had to pull, the link didn't work on it, so council couldn't see it first. Good. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda was a presentation from American Classical Schools. You may have the floor, sir. Just push the base. There you go.
I'm teachable. Mayor, Steer, and council members, my name is Steve Lambert. I reside at 1205 Cottonwood Drive in Fruitland, Idaho. Thank you very much for giving us the time to present something that we're very excited about to the council and folks in Kuna, and that is the potential of a charter school coming to this area to serve this community. And just so to kind of set the stage here, American Classical Schools of Idaho is an entity that is really a 501c3 nonprofit put together to incubate more schools like we have in Fruitland, which is Treasure Valley Classical Academy. And our schools are Hillsdale College K-12 charter schools. A charter school is a school that is tuition-free and open to all students, all students within the attendance zone, and in fact beyond the attendance zone, that are interested in this model of education. ACSI is governed by a board of directors and staff to support schools coming to life. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this quickly, and then if you have any follow-up questions, you're certainly, I'll entertain those. These kinds of schools have shown success nationally and locally. Locally, I mentioned Treasure Valley Classical Academy, a little bit more about that in a minute. We couldn't do our work without national and local partnerships. So the local partnership will be familiar to most folks in the room. This is Bloom and the Albertsons Foundation. The J.A. and Catherine Albertsons Family Foundation has contributed tremendously financially to help the startup of these kinds of schools. Hillsdale College, some people will be familiar with, provides the curricular and pedagogical expertise for us to be able to offer the kind of curriculum that we can offer. The other things you see on that slide on the left is the school that's operating today with K through 10 and 580 students in it in Fruitland. The next one over is Idaho Novus Classical Academy that's opening over in Avamore off of 55 on your way to McCall. That school is under construction and will open this fall with grades K through 6 and about 380 students. Then North Idaho, for those of you that know where Bonners Ferry is, it's almost Canada, but not quite. That school is destined to open August of 25. So how are the schools run? The governance structure is one board, with each school having representation on the board. And there you see the boards, the individual schools rather. Treasure Valley Classical, Idaho Novus Classical, and North Idaho Classical Academies. Each school is its own LEA, its own LLC, and its own standalone 501c3. The schools are run by local leaders, and those local leaders make decisions about their own budgets and their own hiring and firing. The thing that knits us all together is a board with a common mission and purpose. What is American classical education? Probably like your grandparents were educated, or perhaps even further back nowadays. There's 4 distinctives for this kind of education. First of all, it's grounded in human nature. Aristotle says that young human beings literally stretch out to want to know the world around them and understand who they are as human beings, and we foster that sense of natural curiosity and sense of wonder. The second component is that it's rich in content. We have a very intensive core curriculum, grades K through 12. This is a true liberal arts and science education. Quick note, the word liberal can be a trigger word. Let me put it into context. This is not about politics. We derive the word liberal from the Latin word libertas, which means liberty. In other words, this is a curriculum that is designed for the citizens of a free country. We believe in moral formation. James Madison wrote in Federalist 55 that for our republic to be able to perpetuate itself, we need citizens of virtue and citizens of knowledge, both. And so we believe that a proper education habituates good character in young human beings. And then finally, we're thoughtfully patriotic. That doesn't mean we wrap ourselves with a certain kind of flag or wear a certain kind of hat. It means that we believe in the enduring ideals of how our country was formed, and that we should study those political philosophies, those moral philosophies, those economic philosophies, and that we should encourage civic virtue in future citizens. So what does that look like? What's the thing that describes us more than anything else? Our mission statement. So if you take nothing away from this presentation, this is the one thing that you should. Our mission is to train the minds and to improve the hearts of our students through a classical, content-rich curriculum that emphasizes virtuous living, traditional learning, and civic responsibility. That's what we do every day. Mark Twain once famously said that citizenship is what makes a republic. Monarchies can get along without it. What keeps a republic on its legs is good citizenship. The number one goal of K-12 public education ought to be to build good citizens. Yes, kids ought to go to college or choose their own way. Those are positive collateral side effects of an excellent public education. So what is our vision? Our vision is to form future citizens who uphold the ideals of our country's founding and promote the continuation of our American experiment, to use Lincoln's words, through a classical grade books curriculum designed to engage students in the highest matters and the deepest questions of truth, justice, virtue, and beauty. Those are our school's virtues. They're written actually on an old-fashioned chalkboard in the school building in Fruitland. And then on the back of that young student's hoodie, you see our school pledge that we say every day after the Pledge of Allegiance. I will learn the true, I will do the good, I will love the beautiful. Academics. Our academics are serious. As I said, we believe in a deep investigation of the American model. We teach literacy explicitly phonemically. It takes a long time to train teachers how to do this well. We teach mathematics using Singapore mathematics and the dimension sequence, which is a math program that teaches students how to think conceptually instead of just process numbers. And then lastly, this is classical education, so we teach Spanish and then Latin, art, music, and physical education. The takeaway from this slide is that our curriculum is content-rich and it's rigorous across the core subjects that you see depicted there. So what does it look like in practice? These are students at Treasure Valley Classical. We opened the school August of 2019 with grades K through 6, and this school year, we're enrolled with just under 500 students, K-10, with 233 on our wait list. They said we'd never have a wait list in Fruitland. We've had a wait list every single year we've existed. Here's some fast facts. We have a 97% student retention rate, a 95% faculty retention rate, and 85% of our faculty in Fruitland come from have master's degrees or PhDs. They come from everywhere, literally from the Bronx, New York, to Texas, to Kansas, to California. They're amazing, and they're there because of our mission. Here's some other fast facts. Our third grade cohort, first through cohort, has outperformed the state average by 25% in math and 13% in ELA. Our students have outperformed the state at every grade level in mathematics by at least 9%. And our students have demonstrated high proficiency on the NWEA MAP, Reading and Math National Percentile Rankings. We don't define our existence by standardized test scores, but they're a metric that we're all judged by, and we're proud of our results. Here's another result. Our TVCA's leading class last year outperformed the national average on a very challenging test, the classical learning test, which really tests students for their college preparedness. It hasn't been watered down like some other nationally benchmarked tests have. And our 8th grade students outperformed the state average by 8% in math and 20% in ELA the previous year. So we've shown sustained excellent academic performance. This is sort of interesting. We're not a college for all program, but I started out as the principal of one of our sister schools nationally at Atlanta Classical Academy. So the first graduating class from Atlanta Classical Academy was 34 students. They had a 100% acceptance rate to 4-year institutions and garnered $5.7 million in scholarship money. Since then, the school has garnered, it's now well north of $20 million. And students have been accepted to 58 post-secondary 4-year colleges and universities. And no matter what you think of some of the names on this list, they're impressive. I like the bottom one on the right, University of St. Andrews, the oldest university in the world. So if you work hard and it's your ambition to go to college, you're going to get into great schools if that's what the future of your life is. But if that's not what you want to do, then what we will do is we will graduate students that Jefferson once described as farmers that have read Homer. And those make really awesome citizens. So that's sort of a very fast-flying overview of our academic program and our ambitions. But I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mark Tate so we can kind of contextualize this as far as location and campus and timing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Tate with the M3 Companies, 1673 Shoreline Drive, Suite 200, Boise, Idaho, 83702. You might have been wondering, where is this phenomenal school going to be located? For all of the reasons that you just heard, we are so excited to be here to let you guys know that we want to bring this school to CUNA. I think it's an incredible opportunity. We couldn't be more aligned with what the classical academies are all about as a company. We know that CUNA, has had stress based on school capacity. We're also super excited to be able to contribute to that. This is a very ambitious project here. You can see on the screen the master plan of the Valor community. There's an area which is that neighborhood K, which is kind of a family-oriented development that we're kind of reconfiguring things a little bit there with a city park and a school site that would be a K through 12 school. The location is very central to this project and a significant amount of planned growth. And the timeline is ambitious. We are looking to be under development this year. The good news is we already have a preliminary plat for the area. We'd like to start development this year. We'd like to turn over a shovel-ready pad site to them next year, and we would love for them to be opening their doors in 2026. As Mr. Lambert pointed out, they do have a school open right now. They have one under construction. They're starting another one in the following year, and this would be the 2026 opening. So it's a very exciting time. As we mentioned, or Stephen mentioned, it's a public school, open to everybody in the city of CUNA. It'll be a K through 12 school, and we're looking forward to some really exciting opportunities. The way that we've got this configured, working with the Parks Department and the city going forward on having a school next to a city park, there's some really exciting opportunities to collaborate on some facilities, shared parking, different things like that. But really, the point of tonight was just to let you guys know that this is coming before we make a public announcement, and that's what they're looking to do here in the coming weeks, is to make a public announcement. So, yeah, we're so excited, and wanted to tell you a little bit about the school, where it's coming, and you know, we're, as a company, making a huge commitment financially to make this happen. The Barbonas Foundation, who's part of the land, who built the golf courses, who's kind of the reason behind the name Valor, is going to be involved in making this a reality as well. And it's really just serendipity how it's all come together. Valor as a project, and what the community is all about, what the school's all about. Our missions just align perfectly, and we're so excited to make it happen here. So, yeah, we open to questions if you guys have any for me or for Mr. Lambert.
Okay, questions for Mr. Tate?
No, sir.
Or Steve?
If I'm not mistaken, this is a 55 and older community. So how do they feel about a grade school being put right in the middle of it?
Good point. A big part of it is 55 and older. So on the master plan there, kind of yellow, orangish lots down in the southwest corner are all 55 and older. But everything else is all ages. So, yep. So everything in neighborhood K there, and then the future L development, we're kind of designing around a family product, so it should fit right in.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further? Mark, thank you very much, we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lambert.
Steve, did you have anything else you wanted to close up with? All right, all right.
Yes, sir,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Good
I'm just
project.
glad you referred to it as a republic. Yeah.
All right. That leads us to public hearings, 7A. Consideration to approve resolutions R04-2024, water system fees and policies, R05-2024, sewer system fees and policies, and R06-2024, City of Cuna irrigation policies. Jared Empey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today before you, I have 3 resolutions. Essentially, they're all doing the same thing in that they're increasing the connection fees for water, sewer, and irrigation. This is due to the need for funding for future expansions of the system. These connection fees were calculated under prior studies that we brought before you in the past. I believe in 2022 and 2021. So in 2021, we brought before you a pressurized irrigation connection fee study in which we calculated the maximum connection fee possible. And then in 2023, we also engaged Keller Associates to do an update to our connection fee study. And so with that, we calculated that we had the ability to increase our connection fee for water and sewer. And so these resolutions before you are to essentially increase the connection fee for use in expanding the system, in future repayment programs, and also for future city projects that we have. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, questions for Jared?
No, sir.
I do, actually.
Go ahead.
So we updated this, the last time we did this, you said 2020 and 2021?
Yes, Councilman, Council President Bruce. So in 2021, I brought before you the pressurized irrigation connection fee study. And then, so to correct myself, we actually engaged Keller recently to increase the connection fee study for water and sewer. And I have those studies, and so the amount that's proposed would just be to raise it to the maximum amount that we're eligible for under those studies.
And so then this is the fund that we use to ensure that development contributes proportionately towards expansion of the system.
I don't have anything else at this time.
Okay? All right, this is a public hearing. I didn't have anybody sign up to testify in this matter. Is there anybody who wishes to testify that didn't get a chance to sign in? Okay, seeing none. Question is right before council.
Do you have anything? John? I make a motion that we approve resolution R02024, R05. Oh. Yeah, I make a motion that we close the public hearing and move to deliberation.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Now I make a motion that we approve resolutions R04 2024, R05 2024, and R06 2024.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded for approval. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? And that motion carries. And that leads us to case number 2307AN and 2303DA, Cottonwood Crossing. Doug Hanson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning, 751 West 4th Street. The application before you this evening requests to annex approximately 82.20 acres with A, agriculture, and C2, area commercial zones at the northwest corner of 10 Mile and Columbia Roads. The east parcel fronting 10 Mile Road is proposed to be approximately 27.52 acres with a C2 zone. The west parcel, totaling approximately 54.19 acres with an agriculture zone. The proposed agriculture zone lands will be donated for a University of Idaho endowment. The University of Idaho will take possession of the property upon the settlement of the Guido estate, and they must maintain ownership of the property for at least 100 years. Tonight's request is for annexation and development agreement approval. The applicant is not proposing development of the site at this time. In the future, with any development proposals, the applicant will be subject to all development requirements, including the dimensional standards as they appear in CUNA City Code. Staff has reviewed the proposed annexation and development agreement request for compliance with CUNA City Code, Idaho Statutes 50-222, 6765, and the CUNA Comprehensive Plan. And should the council approve the annexation and development agreement this evening, staff recommends the applicant be subject to the proposed conditions of approval as outlined in the report. I will stand by for any questions.
Questions for Doug?
Not at this time, for me.
Okay, and is there anybody else who needed to present?
Good evening, Elizabeth Kekaritz with Givens Pursley, 601 Bannock, Boise, Idaho. on behalf of the applicant. With me here tonight is Dave Crawford, the engineer. Unfortunately, the Guidos could not make it tonight. It also sounds like our presentation did not make it into the packet, so I'll be winging it a little bit more than I like to. But we'll get through this. First, I want to thank Doug Hansen and the rest of the development team for their assistance on this application. This was before you about 6-8 months ago. There were some concerns with it, with the residential component of it, of some high-density residential zoning along 10 Mile. So the Guidos took this back, they reworked it, they thought through what would really work best for the city, still continue to work well for their future estate planning purposes, and so we're back here today with this option. If you remember, we'll just look right here, we're at the corner of 10 Mile and Columbia. This is slated to be in the future a very busy intersection. Is there a picture of the future land use map in here? Let's try this one. So if you were to look on the future land use map, this property is designated mixed use, which provides that there should be at least 2 separate uses on the property. The property directly to the south is across the road is also designated mixed use, and the property across the street has been designated commercial. So it is anticipated that as the city of Kuna continues to grow, that this area will become sort of a commercial corridor, much like the highway coming into town now with the interstate exchange. This is just going to continue to get busier and busier in the future. The site is approximately 82 acres, and it is currently being used for agricultural purposes. The Guidos intend to continue to use this for agricultural purposes going forward. Right now, the Guidos, they are requesting that the 27 acres that are on the hard corner, that those be designated C2, which is your area commercial zoning designation, and that the rest remain agriculture. One thing that was important to them was that, and it seemed like it was important to this council, was that we come forward with an option that did not allow future residential there. And if there were to be future residential, that there'd be a lot more hoops that the Guidos would need to jump through, or whoever owns it eventually in the future. And that was one of the things about the zoning designations that were selected, is the agriculture means it's really the most limited of all of the various zoning designations within the city of Kuna, and they can only build one house on these remaining 54 acres. As far as what is allowed in the C2 zoning, there is absolutely no residential allowed whatsoever. So if in the future someone wanted to put residential here, which quite honestly doesn't make a ton of sense in looking at this being such a commercial corridor, they would have to come back and get a rezone for the property. One of the things that the Guidos are proposing is a development agreement, and so that really can also ensure that the property is not used for purposes that are not something that the city really sees in the future, and that the city does not, and that they're unable to develop it until the sewer services, until all the services really are extended to this area. With the commercial, it is a larger portion. It is 27 acres, sort of along that whole front stretch of the road. That would likely, given the size of it, any development that goes in there, they're also going to be looking at doing, probably having to do a subdivision plat for multiple parcels for multiple owners along there. One of the benefits with this being zoned commercial in the future is that it doesn't have the same effect on schools as other uses, but at the same time, you're going to get major road improvements. Anyone who is going to develop this property in the future is going to have to expand the road at this point in time to a 3-lane road, which will help alleviate a lot. It'll put in a center turn lane, one of the issues that has come up several times in the past is getting in and out, because the Durant, I think it's Big D, they still have a very active agriculture operation there. And so by having that third lane, that will really help alleviate a lot of that traffic as this does start to develop in the future. One of the things with the annexation is that it really does, there's a lot of benefits for this. A big one being this puts CUNA in the driver's seat of what ultimately happens to this property. You have a whole lot more say over it when it's within the city of CUNA, when you start collecting the additional tax dollars on it. And it's also something that the Guidos have been longstanding residents, albeit right outside of the city limits of CUNA, and they want their property to be part of it, and it gives them certainty going forward with their estate planning. If you were to talk to them, they would certainly say, we're not intending on dying anytime soon, but eventually when we do, we want the certainty of knowing what's going to happen to our property. And that they are really big agriculture proponents, and that was the really big purpose behind looking at the University of Idaho, providing this property to them, but also making it contingent on the fact that it has to remain with the University of Idaho. They can't just, with the estate planning process, turn it around and sell it for a huge large lot subdivision right there. It's really going to have to stay and remain some sort of agricultural use going forward. It's hard without my slides. This does meet many of the comprehensive plan goals of the city of CUNA. Including ensuring that land is used to support economic development. It's supporting the development of a skilled, talented, and trained workforce. You'll have the ability to attract, encourage businesses along this area when it's time for this area to develop. You're planning for the expansion of this area. This is how it's designated on the future land use map, so it is intended at some point to be growing this way. I have multiple pages of all of the economic goals. It's attracting opportunities for higher education to the area, varying educational and technical opportunities. And it allows this area to ultimately be developed. And importantly, it just doesn't allow that residential development, which has really put all the pressure on the schools, which has just really recently created a lot of the issues that have been surrounding development. So it puts CUNA more in the driver's seat. It allows the Guidos certainty. We have reviewed all of the staff report. The Guidos are in agreement with all of the conditions of approval, and with that, we would request your approval tonight.
Okay.
I'll stand for any
Questions from council?
questions.
I don't have any of this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to testify in this matter and didn't get a chance to sign in? Okay. Somebody take this back to.
You move quick, Nathan.
And we'll go ahead and get started. Richard Durant, if you'd like to step up.
Mayor, council members, Richard Durant, 7592 South 10 Mile Road, Meridian, Idaho. As was referenced, we live across the road, and I attended the neighborhood meeting, talked to Joe Guido about this, and definitely there was a lot of concessions made. Still concerned of the purpose of annexing when we don't have a plan. I know that we'll be able to have the opportunity to testify at some point in the future when they want to, in my opinion, change some other zoning designations. And so my concern is, where does C2 get to in the future, and how does that affect me long term? So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Okay, questions for Richard?
No, sir.
No, sir. Thank you, Richard.
All right.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Robert and Christie, did you wish to testify? Then Danielle, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Danielle Horace, CUNA School District, 711 East Porter, Director of Strategic Partnerships. So, you heard Elizabeth say that we are having capacity issues at CUNA School District, and I know the five of you are very well aware of that. Our population, our students, are outpacing our buildings, our classrooms, and our teachers. So big picture, we need to get really good, really quick at communicating clearly to all of CUNA that we need to pass a bond in May so that we can build more schools, and we need to do this quickly. So everything you heard from Elizabeth is absolutely right. And I did testify in opposition to this development previously, and I am now testifying in support. And I really appreciate the changes that were made. I testified against the high-density aspects of this development because we just don't have the capacity to serve the students generated from this growth right now. So that was the reason for my other opposition, but the shift of removing that changes everything for us. In fact, the focus on commercial is such a relief for CUNA School District, because what this does is this provides tax reductions for us, so we can build schools at a cheaper bond amount because of the commercial. So we're really happy that this will come in and alleviate some of the pressures that our moms and dads and our grandmas and grandpas are telling us that they can't pay for. So this makes that price tag go down. So with this revision, I want to say that we support this and ask for your approval, as it really does reduce the burden on taxpayers and helps to build our much-needed schools. And I think I might have a minute left, so I want to say one more thing, is that there is I want to give just a short history of our work on why I show up and just to orient folks. So a year and a half ago, our CUNA School Board of Trustees created a policy requesting for fair partnership with developers. The belief is it shouldn't just rest on our taxpayers. We believe that. They heard from all of the patrons that we needed to come to this table with everybody paying a little, so not one entity pays a lot. So this new policy that was created just about 2 years ago allows me to work and partner with developers to ask for mitigation voluntarily, to say things like, hey, maybe you can give us the land, and then we only have to ask the taxpayers for the school building. That cuts quite a bit of the fees off. We met with the City Council as well as Building Contractors Association, and I want to share an update that through the course of that meeting, they asked that the school trustees, they proposed in a letter, and all of you can look at this was in the school board trustee meeting last week, and they said we'd really like it, and we ask that you don't go to these meetings, you don't testify in opposition. And in exchange for that, we'll provide you some dollars so that you can get your bond passed. So I want to just read to you this, that in the last Tuesday meeting, one of our trustees says, we discussed the mitigation fees and what they look like, and we believe that CUNA School District is within the legal parameters for asking developers for this. It won't build schools on its own, but it certainly will cut down on the amounts. And then we as a board decided that we will continue our efforts, which means we don't accept their money. So I wanted to give you that update, and I invite you as well as others to look and listen to what was said with the trustees so that we have a full understanding of what we're doing. So thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. All right, anybody else wish to testify?
Mr. Mayor, we have one more.
Huh?
Another
Yeah.
gentleman? Oh, okay.
There it is. Perfect. Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Chris Brown, 7670 South Old Farm Lane. Just two things, and I'm sitting here, my concern is that if we annex his properties, they're gonna come right back in, and I know we have concern, they've said that this won't happen, but, it's happened out there already, a bad memory, they annex, they come in, and they automatically come back in, and then they wanna rezone those properties. That's a real concern of ours in the neighborhood. The other thing I want to bring up is, it was our understanding, if it was turned down on a project, they had to wait a full year before they brought it back, and it's only been like 6 months. That's all I have to say. Any questions for them? I'd be happy to, if you'd like to question me.
Okay,
questions? Yeah, what part of the area do you live on? Are you on 10 Mile or?
I'm on the west side of the
West
Guido's
side.
property.
Thank you. Thank you.
In fact, Guido's developed that property. They put a subdivision in there.
Okay,
That's it.
all right.
Thank you, sir.
Mark or Doug, can you address the 1 year timeline?
For the record, Doug Hansen, CUNA Planning and Zoning staff. The 1 year waiting time to resubmit an application is for applications that would fall under Title 67, Chapter 65 of the Local Land Use Planning Act, or LUPA. Since it was an annexation and the annexation was denied, there isn't a time requirement to resubmit an application.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else wanted to testify in this matter? All right, seeing none.
There was one person that wrote down that didn't want to testify, was it in favor or not?
There was a couple that, everybody was in opposition except for Chris signed up. And I'm sorry, the school district, and then Chris signed up neutral.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Yes, you may.
Doug, for the public, could you explain the difference for C2, C1? We're hearing a lot of the C1, C2, but what does that mean to the public?
C1 is our neighborhood commercial use, so that's something you'd see on more local neighborhood level commercial uses. C2 is service commercial, where you could see anything from local commercial uses to grocery stores to gas stations, anything with the exception of more heavy-duty intensive commercial uses, service-type commercial uses.
Okay.
And and as a point of clarification, no residential can be placed into any type of commercial use in the city of CUNA.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Doug.
Go ahead.
Was this, before it was changed to mixed use, was it C2? Before we updated the map?
For the record, Doug Hansen, CUNA Planning and Zoning. If you give me just 1 second, I can look at that. Council President Bruce, this property was completely designated mixed use prior to the change to the future land use map in 2022.
Yes, you may.
The comments from the crowd have been, they're worried about pushing it through at this level, the ag and the C2, and then coming back for a rezone. For peace of mind for them and knowledge for me as well, what would that take where there is a development agreement in place?
For the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning. So at this point in time, if the property were annexed under a development agreement, they would need to come back not only for a zone change, but also to modify the development agreement as well. And through the modification of the development agreement, since that's between the applicant and or future property owner and the city council has more discretion in their decision-making as far as zone changes and things that they would like to see.
Okay, next question. Well, let's see, on a development, I guess we'll call it that. Is it common to have, where this has been before us several times now? I don't know where the neighborhood meeting was the first time, but the second time they held it at their residence. To me, that seems controversial that people that are in opposition to this are now going into someone's house to tell them they don't like this and what they're doing, you know what I mean? Like, is that a common thing? Obviously, it's okay, they did it, but.
Holding neighborhood meetings on site is very common.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have, thank you, Doug.
Okay?
You have anything? John?
No, I just, I know the Guidos, it means a lot to them to get their legacy there with this endowment, and they've gone to a great deal of effort and expense to get this brought forward. I think this is probably as clean as they can possibly make it to address all the concerns that were brought up the first time. I appreciate the effort that they've put into it.
I make a motion that we close the evidence presentation and move to deliberation.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that motion?
Mayor,
Yes,
Mark
Mark.
Bybee, City Attorney, I just wanted to make sure, typically, don't we give the applicant a rebuttal opportunity? I don't know if we did.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. No, I did not. Would you like an opportunity?
Just super briefly. Elizabeth Kekritz, Givens Pursley. I do agree with how Doug explained the issues with the steps that you have to go through to amend the development agreement. Also, sort of the different uses between a C1 and a C2, that the C2 is a more intensive use, but it's not the most intensive of the uses. Also, one thing, if there are particular uses that would be allowed in the C2 zone, that the city council finds particularly not appropriate for this area. If those are discussed, they would be happy to include those within the development agreement, that those sort of uses would not be allowed on this property. And with that, I'll stand for any more questions.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Now I make
All
a
right.
motion that we close evidence presentation and move to deliberation.
Had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Well, my thoughts are, once it's annexed, our power greatly diminishes. Like we found out 4 weeks ago, I think it was, the property on Meridian and Ardell, there were very limited things we could do compared to an annexation. I don't know if I really like annexation without plan. That makes me a little, I don't know, a little nervous, just for the same reasons that we had people testify, that what's going to prevent them from coming back in on this 27 acres, coming back in a year and requesting a high density rezone.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
It kind of reminds me of the curve, when that one company tried to come in and make it all commercial, but they had no plans. And it really bothered everybody about, well, what's going to be there? Well, this thing, well, what is this thing? Well, we don't know yet. So they were trying to bring that in without really any substance to the plan. There was no plan. The comment that Councilman Biggs brought up about bringing this back, say 2 or 3 years from now, there's probably going to be different councilmen on there that will see things different than us. So I understand what you're saying. And I agree that something like this is going to have to come back if there's going to be any change. I just worry that the lack of substance of what is going to be there is probably my concern.
You have anything?
Yeah, I do. So obviously there's pros and cons to the changes they've made since we saw them last, which was June 6th, I believe. I looked up last night. The school endowment thing, you know, the way it's worded now, basically like after they're gone, it'll get turned over and then they have 100 years to do something with it. While, and I think that's great, if you look across the state and all the ground that's been given to the university versus how much of it they've actually done something with, that's kind of, the jury's out on that, whether that will ever make something good or not. That's my opinion only.
Right.
But, I mean, it's not the facility size to do like the Parma Research Center or what they do down in the Magic Valley with some of the stuff down there. Maybe they'll do a different caliber, but as was testified to last time by first the applicant and then both of the Guidos, all three of them said something different. And so, and maybe they just really don't know for sure what the U of I will do with it. I guess that's in their hands once it's given to them. But the flip side too is Mr. Guido stood there and said, well, I'm not a developer and whatever, but yet he's presenting a development to us. As stated by Mr. Brown earlier, who developed the subdivision directly to the west of this project? Joe Guido did.
Yeah.
So to say he's not a developer, but he keeps pushing to try to bring developments forward, I guess I have some reservation there. I think the project's a lot better now than what it was, don't get me wrong. You know, the high density next to the Big D facility was disastrous. I mean, with the amount of traffic that just goes into that facility that's been there for decades and doing the good service they do for the community, it would hamper their lifestyle drastically. This is a much better change for sure. I just still have some reservations that they won't immediately come back or in a year or two. And again, we have the ability to squash its own change or modify it to the way we see it best, but I just think that's the angle they're taking from, I'm not a developer.
Well, I was thinking, I mean, there's, like you said, both up and down, or pros and cons, but we've had two developments that have came through recently with the rezone. We had one that we did deny a couple of weeks ago because of, you know, we had lack of sewer, schools, all that stuff that was going on. But then we had one a couple of weeks prior to that, which was a rezone that we couldn't deny. Even though we have legislative authority at rezones and annexations, we were stuck. You know, we couldn't change it. And I think that we shouldn't end up in that same position, whether it be us or someone else down the road.
Yes, Mark.
Mark Bybee, City Attorney. So just from a legal perspective, the development agreement is a significant addition on that issue, Councilman President Bruce, because and it's a negotiated agreement. They don't just have a right to come in and say, we get to change the development agreement. Specifically, what they've committed to in this development agreement is C2 zoning, and which means C2 development. So if they're to come forward later, they'd have to persuade the council that they should be entitled, or not even entitled, that the council should agree to amend this development agreement to allow something other than C2. It's not just, you know, go through code and say we satisfied the requirements for a rezone. They have to also convince this council that it's a good practice and a good decision to deviate from what was originally committed to in the development agreement here, if that makes sense. So I think what you're getting at is this kind of this concern about lack of discretion for the board, lack of ability to deny. And with just a straight rezone, I get that more. With a development agreement, that's a negotiated agreement that they actually have to get you to move off your spot in negotiations.
So it would be the rezone and then also the update to the agreement.
Yes.
So we'd have multiple layers of.
Yes, because the zoning is committed to in the development agreement. That's like, when you look at the concept plan, it's the zoning that's going to be assigned to the different parts. There's ag on a big part, and then on the corner there is the C2. And so if they wanted to come forward later and rezone and do something with something other than C2 development on that hard corner, they're gonna have to convince you to amend your development agreement, not just come and seek only a rezone because the zoning's tied to the development agreement.
So if we had this project come back before us and they had, all the services were met, we could still say no, not to update the development agreement and not run into a lawsuit issue like.
People can get creative on suing you, but as far as can you deny a
Well, I mean, I deny,
development
right, but
agreement
do it-
amendment? Yes, you can deny development agreement.
Well, you see what I'm
amendments.
saying, right?
Yeah, there's always concern about litigation, but the development agreement's a negotiated agreement, and you don't just have a right to change it.
Thank you, Mark.
And that's what I see as our safeguard, is the development agreement. I think that's,
Thank you.
that's kind of the staple that holds together what you're talking about here tonight, and,
I mean, I
makes it
see
where
the-
they can't just come back and do what they've done before.
I see the value in the commercial. I do see what you're saying about the University of Idaho as well, but those are kind of all my questions that I had.
And if University of Idaho doesn't do anything with it for the 100 years or whatever, I guess
Won't matter.
that's
I won't be here.
ag land preservation, right?
You have a motion?
I still don't want the annexation without a plan, but I also don't know if we should ask for the Guidos to be here to speak. I don't know if they would be interested in doing that, because if there's more to think about with this one, then I guess I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I still go back to the limitations between rezone and annexation.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally understand what Mark was saying, but I still think we have those limitations in place, that we are still severely limited on what we can do at rezone, as long as they meet all the requirements. We're still severely limited compared to what we can at annexation.
And it'd be nice to know what, or an idea of what's going there.
Absolutely, and that's my first thing. Because this has come up before, just like, Councilmember Laraway was talking about at the CUNA Curve.
Yeah.
Again, Mark Bybee, City Attorney. I'm gonna couch it this way, is it not so much concerns, like you don't, not knowing what's going there, but that there's certain things you don't wanna go there? Is that kind of where the council's at? Is there development types, commercial projects that you don't want there? Because the applicant has represented, they'd be willing to amend this DA and the conditions of approval to include, prohibitions on certain uses. So is it, and you don't know, there's certain things that you don't want to be there, if that makes sense?
Well, and I think too, that might take more of the people that live around it, right, their input.
The ranch right across the street.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I think, Mark, from just my point of view, I don't know what's going to go there. That's the emptiness I have. I'm just looking at 27 acres. It's going to be commercial, but
a car lot?
how many buildings, where are the plats, a plan?
So, Mark Bybee, City Attorney, again, even if there was a plat concept, you still wouldn't know the users. Users on commercial properties, they come and they'll purchase them later. It's having the plat doesn't tell us the users.
You're misunderstanding. If they had a plan that had, we're going to have a building here, and building here, and this is what it's going to look like, that's fine. I don't care, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't have a preference what goes into those buildings after we approve what we do, because that belongs to the landowner and the developer.
Councilman Laraway, if I may, for the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning. Generally, when we look at all of these preliminary plats with commercial zoning, there never is a plan of the number of buildings or types. That's why we have a official height and area standards table for the dimensional standards that can be utilized by commercial businesses, and why we have a land use table to dictate what types of land uses go there. Generally speaking, with a project like this, they would have to come back for preliminary plat approval to subdivide the commercial land further, and they would need to go through design review with the Planning and Zoning Commission on the types of uses that they would like to place there. Unfortunately, we don't get the luxury of knowing what types of commercial users will come on board.
Why would they come back for more approval? You already have 27 acres of C2. What is there to divide?
They would need to subdivide the overall 27.52 acres in order to make buildable lots. They would need to establish easements, right-of-way dedication, and generally one user isn't going to come in and utilize all 27 acres. That would be a substantial commercial use.
That makes sense, thank you.
Okay, Doug, so how does that differentiate with the commercial that was going in at the corner of Lake Hazel and 10 Mile? The little commercial, the one we approved about a month or two ago? I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it. Eagle?
Hazelcrest Estates? Yeah, so with Hazelcrest Estates, you approved the zoning and the preliminary plat layout. We still don't know the users that will be going in there. We have an idea of the type of commercial that will be coming or the size, but we don't know the users. They'll have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for design review approval and potentially special use permit approval depending on the types of uses.
And I don't want to speak for you, Councilman Laraway, but I think that's probably what you were meaning, that type of a design or.
A design, a picture.
An idea, yeah.
Well, and it is, like I think what a Walmart's 4 acres, 5 acres, right? Is that neighborhood commercial? Something that size? Is that under the same? No?
So this, for the record, Doug
I
Hanson,
see what
Cuda
he's
Planning and
saying.
Zoning, I can't tell you the specific acreage of all Walmarts, but generally something like a Walmart is what you would see in area commercial or service commercial C2 or C3. That's generally not a neighborhood commercial type use, a superstore.
Okay, that's fine.
Mayor, council, if I may speak to this, we're getting a little bit into my wheelhouse, so I'm gonna pipe up. I think something that's important to consider as you're looking at this application, and we're kind of getting here and beating around the bush on it, but just very specifically putting it out there. It is nearly impossible to market for commercial users without commercially entitled property. The process is a little bit different than a residential developer, the applications that you're used to looking at, where the residential developer already has a stated interest in the ground when they bring the application forward to you. Commercial development rarely works that way. The commercial developers are usually developing property to operate a business. The real estate part of it is a necessary evil. It is not how they make their money. So I think when we're talking about if our goal is to bring business and increase our commercial tax base, that having an inventory of available commercial property is critically important. And kind of as Doug and Mark were speaking to, coming forward with that preliminary plat, especially on a property that's on a thoroughfare, the way this one is set up, there's the ability to shop it to a few different kinds of users, and having it more of a blank slate and allowing that first anchor tenant to come in and be the one that kind of sets the stage for how the rest of the out parcels will go around it is really how this type of property and that kind of property division makes most sense in standard commercial real estate development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman McPherson, you brought up something that I didn't hear, but I wonder where you got it from. You're saying that the Guidos are developing this property?
No, they developed the subdivision to the west of it.
Iron
Iron Springs.
Yeah, I remember that.
Back whenever that was built, yeah.
One second, Mr. Mayor, hold on.
And then really, I mean, if you don't do this, it's because they might come back in a year, they still might come back in a year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, the development agreement gives us the more teeth beyond the annexation part, but I think it's just gonna keep coming. something's gonna have to happen, and based on what we've looked at over the past several months anyway, this seems to fit better than anything we've had so
They
far.
did take all the high
It's not-
density.
It's not
No
high
jump
density,
about right in
not
the
high
middle.
density apartments and that type of thing, so.
And this adds commercial without the adjusting the 95.5, right?
May I ask Doug another question for clarification? You, during this process, they said that once this commercial is approved, the rest of the property goes into the University of Idaho endowment?
For the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning staff, that's correct.
So it isn't in there now?
So that would probably be a better question to answer for the applicant, as they're the ones who are specifically working on the endowment agreement.
I think from what I understood from everything I read was that happens after they pass away. And then it's part of the settlement.
Yes, that is correct. Upon the settlement of the Guido estate, that is when the University of Idaho would take ownership of the land.
So not to be the devil's advocate, but down the road, somebody could change their mind in the family and that endowment land would go away and become whatever.
For the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning. As the endowment lands are a subject covered within the staff report, and it will be in the FCOs and make its way into the development agreement, should that land deviate from being University of Idaho endowment lands, a modification to the development agreement would be required to occur.
Okay, thank you.
And was that not a 99-year deal?
100.
Same thing.
If it goes into it.
You got a motion? What do you think?
We've never had an agreement where we've had to come and reevaluate, I guess. I don't know how binding, I'm just curious how binding it is. Because it just seems like we could just, if they just come right before us, we could just tear it up and do a new one. I honestly don't know what the process is, but.
For the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning. Are you referring to how binding a development agreement would be with this particular property? Or
Well, we were just talking about if they had to come back before us, how easy is it one meeting, they tear it up and we just write a new one?
So a development agreement modification would be required to go through the same channels that the creation of the initial development agreement would. So it would still need to come back forward before the before the city council, and a public hearing would need to be held.
Mark Bybee, city attorney. As far as criteria, it's a contract. It requires a meeting of the minds. Like, that's what the basis of a contract is. And the purpose of a development agreement, if you're unfamiliar with them, the way I kind of explain them, a simple layman's way, is that it's like you're writing special law for this parcel. Some of them can be very particular in the special laws you might be writing for the parcel, because it gets recorded against the property. Somebody that purchases or acquires a property that's subject to a development agreement, this is something that's going to show up in their title reports. They're going to receive notice of the development agreement through that. And so it's conditions you are allowed to place on the development unique to the property, unique to the property, and it runs with the land, it binds future owners, all those kinds of things. So how easy is it to amend? I guess it really comes down to how willing the council would be to change their mind from what they did in the original development agreement, because that's really what it comes down to. Have circumstances changed such that C2 is no longer the right thing, and does the city agree to this, or are they sticking to where they were at? Has their position not changed? I'd have to persuade you that your position on what this should be should change.
Okay.
I guess the short of it is it's going to add the commercial without the residential. If they need to change it, they'll have to come back to us anyway. And then when they pass away, it'll put the land, the agricultural stay. What's the property across the street, do you know? The Durants, is that?
They're directly to the east, yes.
What's that zoned? Is that
Industrial.
industrial?
It's county ag.
County ag? What do you want to do, guys? What do you think?
I think it's gonna keep coming back.
Yeah,
until we do something, and I think they've done everything to pacify the requests that were made the last time it was here. I think they've gone to a great deal of effort and expense to bring back something that would be agreeable to, mainly so that they can get that endowment in, and that's been their main goal from the beginning, as near as I can tell, so.
And if you look at ACHD's plan, that's gonna be a corridor anyway. 10 mile. And we don't have to, the commercial's gonna add to the tax base. It will offset some of the residential.
May I ask Doug another question?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to work myself through this, because I do it differently. If the totality of the property now, 27 acres being commercial and
55.2.
55 being agricultural, my biggest concern about like this stuff is I know what's in front of me, and that's the commercial. This other 55 acres has me worried. Do we have to annex both pieces of property? Can we annex just the commercial? It's already split up and divided anyway.
Mark Bybee, City Attorney. So in this application, no, you can't just annex only part of it. They've submitted an application for the entirety of it. And so the applicant would have to be willing to modify their application significantly from what it is to actually be able to do that.
Okay.
So you either approve or deny the application in front of you. You don't modify the application. That has to be the applicant's decision because it's their property.
Thank you.
I think we've been heavy with residential lately, right? The impact on the schools, the taxes. I mean, this adds commercial to it. It's gonna be a corridor, a main corridor anyway in the future. If they have to change it, they have to come back to us. Right?
And, I mean, as reluctant as I am to jump on board with this, I think the mayor's right. It's only been 8 months since they were here last. We're just gonna see it again and again and again.
They're retired anyway.
Well, yeah.
They're just sitting at
They're
home.
like, John, they have nothing better to do than bug me.
Sitting at home, bringing it back. Matt, do you have anything else? Councilman Lorway?
Can't think of anything.
Didn't anyone have a motion?
Sorry, just a quick point of order on your motions. Because of the nature of the application, if it's a motion to approve, it needs to be on all applications. If it's a motion to deny, it only needs to be on the annexation. That's because if you move to deny on annexation, you don't have jurisdiction on the other applications because the land never came into the city.
All right. I make a motion, we approve case number 23-07-AN and 23-03-DA.
Okay, do you have a second?
Very reluctantly, I will second that.
I mean, if you don't, it dies, and then we can just move the other direction. I was just trying to get a feel for everyone and trying to move this thing forward.
No, I get it.
Just a meeting,
we
not
have
the.
the control later to not do a rezone on the C2. I feel confident in what our staff and attorney have said about the legalities of them trying to change it without very in-depth, meetings and whatever. Like the mayor continually said, it's gonna come back if we, and we have them in the development agreement. We have ironclad, this is what's going to do. We don't know who's gonna do, but we know what it's gonna do. And it's commercial, and it's not all the apartments and whatever right out the front door, Big D.
super
I
high
do like that.
density,
I
yeah.
mean, that was huge in my book anyway, maybe not as much to others, but
And I mean, I could go either
second
direction.
stands.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Yes? All right, any further discussion? Nathan, I'm gonna let you go ahead and poll council.
Councilmember McPherson.
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs.
Nay.
Councilmember Laraway.
Nay.
Council President Bruce.
Aye.
We have a split vote, Mayor.
And I will vote aye. That motion carries. That takes us to case number 2302 CPM and 5700 West Cunamora. Doug Hanson.
Mayor and council, for the record, Doug Hanson, CUNA Planning and Zoning, 751 West 4th Street, CUNA. The applicant this evening requests a comprehensive plan, future land use map, or FLUME amendment in order to update the future land use designation for 5700 West Cunamora Road from agriculture to industrial. The subject site is located within unincorporated Ada County and will be remaining under their jurisdiction. However, as Ada County has adopted the city's Area of City Impact Agreement and recognizes the city's future land use map as adopted on November 1st, 2022, they will not accept a development application from the applicant until a decision is rendered on this application from the council. Due to the subject site proximity to the existing East CUNA industrial area, and as the applicant's request has been found to be compliant with CUNA City Code Title V and Idaho Code 6765, staff is in support of this amendment. With that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Okay, questions for Doug? All right, this is a public hearing. I didn't have anybody sign up to testify. Is there anybody who wishes to testify in this matter that didn't have a chance to sign in? All right, seeing none. Question is rightfully before council.
I guess I do have one question.
What?
Morgan, this is going to fall up underneath your urban renewal district. Yes? No?
Councilman Laraway, this property at this time is ineligible for annexation into the city of CUNA because it doesn't have a continuous path. There are interested property owners and a couple of things going on out there that we might see it come forward into the city in the future, but that's not something that is available to this property owner at this time. When the applicant, Mr. Long, came to us, that he needed some help so he could get going in the county.
I just realized what you were getting at.
Yes.
Thank
Are you good?
I'm good. It was right in front of me, too.
Anyone else have anything? So we need to. I make a motion that we close the public hearing and move to deliberation.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
I make a motion that we approve case number 23-02 CPM.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded for approval. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Item 8A is R13 2024. That was not opening and the link wasn't working. So, Jared, I'll let you go ahead and address that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So before you, I have an update to the procurement policy that we originally passed. I believe it was in 2022. So this procurement policy is used for essentially outlining what state code says are requirements for procurement, and it also outlines the requirements that we are to follow when we have federal grants available and when we're under single audit requirements. And so this update is just to reflect changes that were made by the Idaho legislature during last legislative season to just update the thresholds under purchases for services and personal property. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, questions for Jared? Okay.
Actually, I do. Do you know the last time that the procurement policy was updated, like the amounts? Just off, it's not important, just the top of your head, do you know?
So before 2022, we didn't have a written procurement policy. And so essentially in 2022, I believe that was the first time we had a written procurement policy.
And you said we moved that to 8A.
Yeah.
Anything? I make a motion that we approve Resolution R13-2024.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Consideration to approve ordinance 2024-02, a municipal annexation and zoning ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kuna, making certain findings and declaration of authority and annexing certain real property to wit 5610 South 10 Mile Road, owned by MJB Properties LLC within unincorporated area of Ada County, Idaho, and contiguous to the corporate limits of the City of Kuna into the City of Kuna, Idaho, and establishing the zoning classifications of said real property and directing the city engineer and city clerk and providing an effective date.
I make a motion that we waive 3 readings of
Second?
ordinance 2024-02.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to waive the 3 readings. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-02 as published.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the ordinance. Any further discussion? Nathan, would you poll the council?
Councilmember McPherson?
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs?
Aye.
Councilmember Laraway?
Yes.
Council President Bruce?
Aye.
And that motion carries. Consideration to approve ordinance number 2024-03, a municipal annexation and zoning ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kuna, making certain findings and declaration of authority and annexing certain real properties to wit, Ada County Assessor's parcel numbers S12344495550 and S123444600, owned by Lake Hazel Crest LLC within unincorporated area of Ada County, Idaho, and contiguous to the corporate limits of the City of Kuna into the City of Kuna, Idaho, and establishing the zoning classifications of said real property and directing the city engineer and the city clerk and providing an effective date.
I make a motion that we waive the 3 readings of ordinance 2024-03.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-03 as published.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Nathan, would you poll the council?
Councilmember McPherson?
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs?
Aye.
Councilmember Laraway?
Aye.
Council President Bruce?
Aye.
And that motion carries. And that is all we had on the agenda for the evening. I don't know how many of you saw you may be aware of the discussion by the school board and their decision to not agree to the building contractors. Danielle had talked about, and so they're gonna move forward with what they're doing and not be asked by anyone to quit showing up and commenting at meetings, so I don't blame them for feeling that way. They basically were asked not to come anymore, so. Anyway,
By somebody at the school district?
what's that?
By somebody at the school?
The Building Contractor Association offered an agreement to the school district that they would help them run the bond for building new schools if the school district would agree to stop doing what they were doing. So anyway, they decided not to stop what they were doing, which I don't blame them at all. Anyway, that was kind of the update. Legislature is in full swing. One that I think's probably gonna go through is whenever you run for office, if you run uncontested, generally your name doesn't have to be on the ballot. They're trying to run one where your name would be on the ballot. I don't think it affects the declaration or any of that. It's just so that the public can view and see that that seat was open, nobody ran against it, it was uncontested, and so the name's on there. I think there's a lot of concern that people aren't seeing who actually sits in these seats, so I actually have no problem with that. I think that's, if nothing else, you get to see your name on the ballot once in a while if you don't have opposition. So, yeah, and a lot of other little things going on. Some of them are a little strange, and some of them are reasonable. So I don't know. I'll keep sending you those updates as I get them through the Association of Idaho Cities. And again, if you ever have any questions, I know Councilmember Bruce was sitting on those for a while. I don't know if you've had time lately, but
Yeah, it's good information.
anyway, that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I'd like to say, usually we give a lot of praise to PD and parks. They've done a lot of great things and keep us safe and whatever. And sometimes not as much praise goes to the other workings of the city. We have great P&Z staff, and Morgan and Nancy, Jared, we have great staff. They all need good praise. But today I'm gonna go after Public Works. I was in a class today for my private sector work, and some of the sewer manager was there and an employee learning to be able to work on some of the center pivots and stuff that we have out at the city farm. It was good to see that our guys are out furthering their education, and now they'll be able to, diagnose and fix problems in-house and not have to rely on a company to come out and cost the taxpayer more money. And it makes their job easier knowing what's the problem is. They can just go fix it, not the guy comes out and hits the switch on the bottom of the solenoid and it restarts, and here's your $500 bill for that,
Yeah.
It was really good. It was a real informational class, and I'm sure Travis and Josh got a lot out of it. And it's good to see employees getting further education and us allowing them to go do that. It works both ways. It's good for them and very beneficial for us and the taxpayers, so good for them.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we've been to a couple of committees with Paul, and it's an education. I mean, you walk in there naive and you start to learn all what they do and what they have to put forward to keep moving things, and it's pretty impressive. Kudos to Paul.
The CUNA firefighters are doing the leukemia stair climb again this year. They did raise funds at La Di Da last week, the week before. Yeah, Friday. The event, it looks like it's March 10th, so, if you know anybody who's interested, I believe it's in Seattle, but I'm a leukemia survivor, so it's always been important for me to support stuff like that, and our local firemen are doing it, and humping 65 flights of stairs.
I have never been in any kind of shape to even think about 65 flights of stairs.
With all your gear on.
I could fall down that many.
Yeah.
But that would be it.
EMS carrier.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there.
They train hard for
Daryl.
that, so yeah, that's good. That's good.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say, Nancy, tomorrow, I think, is it the career fair? Awesome. Nancy did an awesome job of that last year with all the kids and over at the high school. And I also wanted to say, you may not know him, but he's the VFW commander for CUNA, and his wife, Mary, is a teacher at Reed Elementary, I believe it is. Anyway, they got in a really bad car accident this weekend, over on Meridian Road, and take a guess, Deer Flat, I guess, was where it was. And Mary has been in several surgeries. Looks like she's gonna be okay, but she has several broken ribs, punctured kidney, a couple other things, so, she's waiting for her next surgery. I keep getting the Facebook updates, that's all I can get. But,
Put them on your prayer list.
yeah, definitely keep them in your thoughts if you can.
Was it on the
Another
flashing yellow?
I'm not sure, I don't know, Chief knows the details on that one.
Oh.
Just down.
And thank you, too, for the director's update.
Yeah,
I
we
like
just,
that.
that was a little late coming
Yeah.
this time. We'll try and get those out a little early, but Sulema's coordinating that. and
No,
doing a
it's,
good job,
it's
so.
good to see everything that
Yeah.
each department's working on, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so then any questions on that, just let me know. Keep it going. All right, well, that's all I have, so thank you all very much.